It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers here this evening. Our interviewer is the wonderful Ross Gay. Ross teaches poetry at Indiana University and is the author of the poetry collections Against Which, Bringing the Shovel Down, Lace and Pirate, Letters from Two Gardens, River, Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude, and the essay collection, The Book of Delights. Of course, as Aimee was saying, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Ross has a new poetry collection coming out in September titled Beholding. You can pre-order it through the Midtown Scholar bookstore or from your favorite indie. I'm going to drop that link in the chat room as well, so look out for that, as well as of course. Our featured author this evening is Aimee Nezhukumatathil. Aimee is the author of 4 collections of poems, including most recently Oceanic, winner of the Mississippi Institute of Arts and Letters Award. Other awards for her writing include fellowships and grants from the Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, Mississippi Arts Council, and MacDowell. Her writing appears in Poetry, the New York Times Magazine, ESPN, and Tin House. She serves as poetry faculty for the writing workshops in Greece and is professor of English and creative writing in the University of Mississippi's MFA program. Once again, the book we are here for this evening is, of course, World of Wonders, in Praise of Fireflies, Whale Sharks, and Other Astonishments, with illustrations by Fumi Nakamura. It is truly an indie bookseller favorite of the year. BuzzFeed writes that the essays sing with joy and longing, and Kirkus Reviews says that the writing dazzles with the marvel of being fully alive. So again, if you'd like to purchase the book, check out the link in the chat room or simply head to midtownscholar.com to get your copy. You will not be disappointed. But now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming onto the screen Ross and Aimee.
Hello. Hi, Aimee.
Hey, Ross. I should wear my overalls. I did not plan this. It was just, I just had a hunch you might be wearing overalls.
I know when you did it, I ran inside and put them back on from yesterday and the day before. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm so, you know this, I'm already just so glad. There's so many events going on with this book, but I'm so happy just right on the heels of our Poets and Writers interview to be kicking off today with you. So I'm just as excited, and anybody who has seen me in the classroom for 10 minutes knows how much I love your work too. So it feels just so special to be able to do a book event here.
Well, it's such a beautiful book, and you know, it's been so fun to kind of, you know, for those of you who don't know, Aimee and I are good friends, and we've worked on stuff, you know, a lot, and are kind of constantly in some kind of way working on stuff. And I've admired Aimee's books since, you know, the beginning, and so we're friends, and so you're going to kind of be among friends. At least I do. But anyway, yeah, so, you know, it's just like, it's been kind of fun to be with you as you've been working on this project for these years, and to think about it in relationship to your poems. But I guess in some like very basic way, maybe a way to sort of start us talking is to say something like how or why this specific kind of book, like a book about wonder. I mean, anyone who knows your work knows that that's like a kind of like the, you know, one of the central features of your work. But still, I think maybe that's even worthwhile to say, like, why wonder? Like, what's the, you know, just why wonder?
Okay. Such a good question, and I'll try not to be as wordy, you know, as I can. So
Be wordy.
You know, I think why wonder, I guess maybe I'll throw it back and be like, why not wonder? You know, like, you know, anybody that's spent time with kids, you know, I was teaching kids poetry. I was teaching kindergartners and first graders poetry since I was in grad school. So, and I thought I did not want kids, you know, that kind of thing. So I loved kind of working with them and then going home, you know, without kids. But one of the special things that I loved, and that's changed, obviously. One of the things that I love is that you never have to tell a group of kindergartners how to wonder. You don't have to teach them how to wonder. In fact, you hang out with enough kids 6 and under, and one of the words that they'll say the most often is look. You know, and so like nobody teaches them how to exclaim. They just do it. We all exclaim, but some of us stop exclaiming at some point. I know you haven't stopped exclaiming. I haven't stopped exclaiming, but something happens, I think, maybe around junior high when it's not cool to exclaim anymore, or at least out loud. And I mean, isn't that a shame? Like, so I think I'm not at all ignoring. There's so much sadness and grief. I mean, like, any given hour of the day, I'm either just like full of rage or sadness and missing my folks or anything. But the one constant in my life has been wonder.
Yeah. And does it like that thing of, because one of the things that this book to me is like it demonstrates what it means to have a kind of like, and your body of work actually, which is a fun thing to say, your whole body of work, because we're getting there, is like that it has a persistent sort of desire to think about and study wonder, to be in the midst of wonder, or to sort of valorize wonder. Like the exclamation is like one of your modes, and we're kin that way.
Yes, all of our text is like exclamation.
I know, true, yeah. But so I guess a worthwhile question to me is did you feel, were there times where you felt like wonder, I mean, I think it would be hard for someone to imagine you not sort of being that way, or being more, whatever the opposite is of sort of in touch with wonder, or reaching toward wonder, or studying wonder. So that's sort of, I'm wondering if like you have to, excuse the noise, if you have to like practice, I know, if you have to practice it, or even if you've had a time like when you were like, say, a junior high kid or a high school kid, and where you were like sort of like, had like narwhals on everyone else had AC/DC and you had like the drawing of the narwhal, or like the newt. Did you have to sort of, do you have to sort of reclaim that? Was a point where you sort of withdrew from wonder and like reclaimed it? And maybe if not, neat.
I will say that I tempered it. I never stopped it, but I tempered it just to survive in junior high. You know what I mean? Like, I went to a really rural, predominantly white junior high. All I wanted to do is be blonde and fit in, and to get the football players to notice me. And that's the saddest freaking thing ever. And I hope nobody ever has to feel that way, but it is what it is. That's what happened. So outwardly, I tempered it. I never stopped. I mean, anybody who knew me then knows that I would almost like fall off my bike and cause everybody who was riding with me on bikes to almost fall over, because I'd be like, look, that flower, or whatever. And they'd be like, what? But absolutely, I definitely, I don't know if I'd go so far as to reclaim it, but after a while, I just got to be like, well, I knew that the people I loved and who loved me didn't care. I mean, like, embrace that about me. And the ones that didn't, I finally was just like, I don't care. I don't freaking care anymore. You know what I mean? So I wish I never had it, and it didn't last, thankfully, for long. But junior high and high school, for sure, I definitely tempered it, because none of the so-called cool kids exclaimed or had wonder outwardly. I wish I was brave enough and bold enough and more confident enough to just completely do my own thing, but I'm just keeping it real. I absolutely just wanted it to kind of blend in. And I talk about that so much in the book, this idea of being camouflaged or blending in, not making too much of a scene. And now I'm talking to you in front of this like jungle background. Obviously, I'm not worried about blending in anymore, but yeah, for sure, growing up, I did. How about you? Did you?
Oh, for sure. Like, even I also wanted to sort of say, I remember trying to brush my hair, like my afro, like, and I remember, I don't know who I was looking at, like George Michael, and I was, and I was trying to make my hair like feather or something, you know. And I don't, you know, like we all have this story. That's not all of us, but a lot of us have that story.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I wanted to do Madonna, like a prayer, or not like a prayer. Papa Don't Preach's video. Like, come on, I can't do. I never told you that before, and you never told me that about George Michael before. Oh my God.
Yeah. But so I guess, and then what? Oh, so anyway, you asked me, and absolutely, like that. A sort of like when I think of myself at that age, while also, I think just sort of being, you know, I don't know, constitutionally having a capacity for sort of pleasant befuddlement or flummoxment, you know, like, I think totally like a kind of like, you know, this way of when we grow up, we often have to imitate mastery or something, have to pretend mastery or imitate mastery, knowing, and like also like a kind of unrattleability, like, and part of wonder is like, it seems to me that wonder is a kind of profound vulnerability. Like you're always prepared, you're always in the state of being ready to be moved. Which is, and that, I mean, your book is like sort of, you're just like a kind of a testament to the capacity of us to be moved, but also like kind of the ethics of that capacity or that practice, you know?
Yeah. And that's so, gosh, you nailed it. That's exactly it. And I think, you know, what I hope is that this book also doesn't shy away of like who gets to have that sense of wonder, who gets that wonder nurtured, you know? I'm very well aware that is from a privileged point. I mean, I grew up with parents who worked all the time, but so most of the time they just let us be, which was really honestly the best gift. But when they were present, they never made fun. Like I never had a mother or a dad who was like, why are you reading? Or had to, you know, like, why are you staring at the clouds? Or why, you know what I mean? It was the exact opposite. Like they modeled so much for me, what it was like to be at all. I mean, they're such book smart. They don't read, you know, but they are such cerebral people. And yet they also had no apologies for, you know, putting their car in reverse, backing a tree in bloom or something, you know, when we're on a road trip. They would just be exclaiming it. That was the best gift. So the two people that I admired the most, they practiced for me wonder and being in awe, and I'm so grateful for that. And I also know that, I mean, you said it yourself, like there's a good segment of the population that doesn't feel comfortable walking in the woods by themselves, or doesn't have the privilege of walking in the mountains. You know, my dad would take us all the way up to Camelback Mountain in the suburbs of Phoenix on the weekend. But what about the dads who weren't able to do that? You know?
Right.
So I think about that so much. And I think, and I know it comes, like my writing this is not at all, I mean, I don't think you would ever even find that in the book, but I want to say it again, that I write it very much knowing that that's one of the most precious gifts that I have. And it's more of just me wanting to share it, you know, to share as we all do, to write the things that we love. And I did not know this was going to happen in a pandemic, but in that way it became very easy in some ways. But it was also super vulnerable because I didn't have that poetry veil in front of me to be like, oh, this is the persona. No, this is what Aimee really truly loves. And if you don't love it too, I'm going to be a little bit bummed. You know what I mean? Right. It's not a persona, you know, that kind of thing. So I write with just that hope, that spirit of hope and possibility, that maybe you didn't have that, or maybe you didn't have it enough or as often, but it's not too late, that we can still move forward and still create wonder and awe. And we need
I mean, that's a thing. And I think that's a thing that's vital. And I think we forget it too. Like there's actually a way that you can model for other people enthusiasm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I don't want to be, and my parents never were like, you must do this or you'll fail at life. They never said that. They never, so there's nothing in my book that says like, you must be like me or you know, or you just, it's just like, I just want to show you what I love, and maybe some fraction of that will change the way you look at something else too, as a practice, right?
Yeah. That's, when I think of that, I think of like, I think of like that, you know, anytime in our life when you're around someone who has a kind of like enthusiasm that comes from exactly what you're saying, comes from love, that, you know, that is sort of, is tapped into a kind of love, like a real kind of clear love. You're a little bit like, I mean, many feelings, we can have many feelings. Sometimes I think my experience has been, and I witness other people have the experience of being like it's a little much, you know, because it is kind of like, my belief is that it's a reflection of something that's an absence in ourselves. You know, like we all, I mean, and I don't want to say we all, but I think our inclination is to actually be drawn to a state of sort of actually sort of articulating like what we love, like being like, holy shit, that's beautiful. Like, you know, actually the Western light coming through that black walnut tree, that is magical. That'll never be like that again in the history of the universe. That's never going to happen. You can't see it, sorry. But it, you know, but that, I think that's like actually part of it. And, but when you sort of are in the midst of that kind of expression of wonder or that expression of awe, I think it could be a little bit like unnerving, or because you have to like in some way be like, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Absolutely. And I don't have all the answers. You know, there's a reason why I don't have a 10-page bibliography at the end, you know. I wanted to really write what I knew, and I fact checked a couple, you know, I wanted to check myself to make sure I wasn't misremembering things. But really, I didn't want to present, look at all this research, I'm going to dump it now into, you know, here. That other people do that, and that's their strength. That's not mine, you know. So, to wonder means you want to have more curiosity. You're admitting that you want to be curious, and that's how do I put this? This is one of the many things that this administration has made me so angry about, is how cavalier it treats the pursuit of knowledge. Like just knowing facts is like kind of put down by this administration. And so like the idea of like learning or being in college to seek out knowledge is like a bad thing. That it's so mortifying to me that someone would say, oh, wanting to learn about another plant or an animal or another type of people or kind of people would be a negative thing in any way. You know, that it's just astonishing to me that the pursuit of knowledge would be looked down upon as elitist, when honestly, I didn't own any books really until I was in maybe late college. It was all the libraries. And that was, you know, free. So it's just astonishing to me that one of the great terrors of this administration is how they've encouraged being ignorant as being somehow the most ideal way to be. And that horrifies me, that there'd be leaders that would shy us away from learning about the world.
Like curiosity as a kind of something to be avoided, etc. I mean, times 10.
Absolutely.
And it so how then in a world in which, because I don't think it's in many aspects of our lives. I think you can often go to school and have your curiosity crushed, right? And the places of sort of learning are often places where curiosity, like actual curiosity, is smashed, you know. And I mean, I witness it. I actually sometimes I feel like as a teacher, I have witnessed myself struggling sometimes with curiosity, like my sort of like smallest that part of myself that is trying to be in control, that is trying to police the world, that is trying to sort of dominate, trying to be in control, trying to sort of enforce a kind of knowledge, trying to impose a kind of knowledge. It feels like that that's in me, and that's a sort of a practice to, in a classroom, constantly be like trying to cultivate and encourage curiosity, which may not meet up exactly with what I think a class is about or something. But anyway, so to me, school is so often is one of the institutions where curiosity is actually destroyed. And you're a teacher. How do you, and I know, and you're a good teacher. I've been around your classes, in your classes, and I know your students who love you. How do you, because also in these graduate programs, often people are coming to us because in some kind of way it's presumed that we have a kind of mastery. And it's also that they're coming maybe to gain a kind of mastery. Graduate education or education period is about, we often think of it as a kind of about gaining mastery, but wonder is deeply almost the opposite. Anyway, that's a question.
I thought it was a statement. It was a statement. I know what you're saying. So like in a nutshell, I mean, my whole semester is built on this, but what I would say in a nutshell, like maybe I think I'm trying to tease out that question there is like, how do you encourage students to not?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, people who are sort of like, who might be aspiring toward mastery. How do you encourage curiosity? How do you encourage wonder? In a scene where, for those of you who are not like creative writing people in the audience, like writing workshops can be the most, can be like sites of great barbarity to curiosity and wonder. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's not to be flip, but it's the truth, and any of my former students can chime in here. I just really frankly tell them, if not the first day, they find out on their own within the first week that I kind of dissuade them immediately of that idea of me being a master, Yeah. I'm a full tenured professor, but I think the biggest lesson that I try to give them is that I'm still learning. I'm still wanting to learn and be curious. There's no point I can ever imagine. The day that I ever say, I know all there is to know about poetry or creative nonfiction, or I know anything about any subject, is when you need to take me off, ship me to an island in Bali, and just be on my, and I even hope that I'm learning how to, how to identify shells on the beach or something.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh, like that's, and the arrogance of people who think, oh, well, I have my MFA, now I'm a master. You can see it in their writing. There's no curiosity, there's no duende, there's no, there's no element of being changed by something that they've written, like there's discovering something after they finish writing. Like if I'm not discovering something when I'm writing, that's how I know the piece is flat. I don't want to ever go into a piece. Today I'm going to write about the narwhal and then not come to any discoveries about myself or the narwhal or something else by the time the essay is done. Really, I think you'll see that in all of my poems, all of my books, that there needs to be, and that discovery, that doesn't end when the semester's done, is that I'm still learning, pushing myself on different forms, so I start with love. So I start with love, and then the willingness to say, I'm going to be learning along with you all. I think that's huge. I think not many teachers can say that, because that admits that somehow, the power dynamics is shifted. When I say, I'm probably going to be making mistakes, but I promise you that I'm going to be learning to be the best teacher and learn with you and from you as well. So I think that kind of skews the power dynamics a little bit in a good way.
Yeah. And are there like actual, I know there are, so when I ask this, I know there are. What are some of the, like an example of an exercise that you might do with your students, and that, because
Well, this one isn't even writing necessarily, but you know, I assign my students sometimes like a cloud journal. They have to, before the end of the semester, need to be able to identify maybe 4 or 5 clouds, shapes of clouds, just on a human you know, not to mention like, oh, this is going to help you with a publication. But how do you walk around this planet not knowing the names of clouds that you see? You know what I mean? Crazy.
Yeah.
That's maybe where the being too much is, but let's put it this way. I've never had a student who said this is worthless knowledge.
Yeah.
They all are so grateful. And to me, that helps them be more in tune, and they become better writers because they notice things, because they have names for these things. You know what I mean? So it's not something like, oh, write 4 or 5 poems or study this scansion. That's all great. But sometimes I will say, like, your job is to learn the names of 4 or 5 clouds before December happens, you know? So, and you don't get to do that from a book. You have to look outside your window at the very least.
Yeah. Does it feel like the ways that, because I mean, there is this kind of lovely paradox or something, which is that like reading your work, we know that you're in like kind of deep communion with the earth, and you're like, you know, at least 5 kinds of clouds, and you know, tons of, you know, flora and fauna, and I mean, you're deep in it in this sort of wonderful way. You're a student, and I think it's probably the case that the more you know, the more you're like, I don't know anything. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wake up, this is part of me being a Capricorn, but sometimes I wake up at night, quite literally, almost in a panic because I didn't do XYZ reading, or I wanted to know about this. So that's the extreme version. I don't really wish that for anybody. And also it could be that we're in a pandemic, so I wake up for the slightest things. Yeah, the more you know, the more you hunger to know. And the more you want to know the names of things, the more, like, it doesn't, I don't know. It's just such a foreign concept to me that I think once you get to know and care for these, once you get to kind of fall in love with these newts that look to the stars to find their way home, once you get to know that there's a species of fish that it's a male fish that carries eggs in its mouth, and it always just looks like it's carrying a bunch of jawbreakers, you just lose your appetite for destroying their environment, you know what I mean? Because you know the names. That's a jawfish. Oh, I don't want to hurt the Carolina wrens that are in the shrub that's driving me crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah, it doesn't end like, oh, I've learned everything there is to know about the cactus wren. I'm done. Call it a day. I'm a nature writer now. You know, there's so much, and because of that, I don't have writer's block ever. Because now I might have trouble finding time to write, but I don't ever wonder what I'm going to write about because there's so much out there. There's so much out there. So anyway, hey,
that
Ross,
thing you said.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, let me just say one thing that you said is so important, is that, like, you know, as you know these things, and as you sort of are blown away by the, you know, by the axolotl and by the, you know, all the myriad wonders, you're also less inclined, or you're less inclined to destroy, or you're more inclined to be like, wait, what am I participating in destroying? You know, that's like part of what your work is, like doing this kind of, it's like it's an attempt at preservation, maybe through what's the word, like kneeling down, you know? Reverie.
I mean, yes, exactly. Once you have reverie, it's hard for me to imagine a world where you can have both at the same time. Once you hear something, once you love something, you're gonna want to do everything you can to protect it. Once you get to know, oh, these birds also look at the stars, I'm gonna make sure I'm not putting more pollutants in the air so they can continue to see the stars, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah. Hey Ross, can we do a quick little poll here? How are we doing on time? We completely forgot the polls here. I got polls. I got everybody in the audience. I see your questions, that kind of thing. And let me see. Alex, can we get a poll up there? I'm gonna share my screen here in just a little bit. This is audience participation. Let me see here. All right, so you gotta answer this in about 10 seconds. Oops. Oh, hang on 1 second. Okay. Did you do the poll? Did you do the poll, Alex? Did it not come up? We can do the second one. Okay, there you go. Oh,
there it is.
Good, good, good. Let me see. So regenerate arms. What's the highest one? Oh, narwhal. Everyone's wanting to be a narwhal. Okay, good, good. That's one of my favorites. You'll see here on the background, that's one of the animals from World of Wonder. I know people were asking about that. And then Alex, can we do the second poll just real quick since we're here? Here's one, the narwhal. I didn't plan that. So, okay. Would you rather fight 20 duckling-sized narwhal or 1 narwhal-sized duckling? Just as a FYI, in case you don't know what a narwhal is, that's what it looks like. And they're 3,000 pounds. So don't think about it. Just answer real quick. Ross, you too.
Oh, sorry.
All right, let's see the results here.
I saw that a mile away.
Audience, okay, excellent. All right, good, good. Oh, I thought the narwhal-sized duckling would get more, but it's almost a tie. All right, great. All right, let's see, back to stop share. Okay, great. Just wanted to change it up a little bit.
Are we back to us?
Yeah.
Okay. I think maybe I think we're at ask maybe a question from the audience. Are we at that time? I lost track of the.
About, yeah, I think that's about at 6:40, right? Or 7:40, yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a beautiful question. How do you both cultivate wonder and delight at this time of confusion and grief and fatigue in these difficult times?
Yeah. Ross, actually, that was the question I had written down. Who asked that? That's a great question. Ross, that's the question I wanted to ask you. I know we had kind of talked about it a little bit before, where it's, you know, someone will be like, oh, I got a new thing. I wish you could add this to your book. Here's another wonder. You know, and Ross, I know when you had the Book of Delights, people I know were like, hey, I got a delight for you. You know?
Yeah.
How do you do it now? I want to hear it from you.
You know, like, I mean, one of the things that and your book is very much like this. One of the things that I admire about your book is that it is not like, you know, wonder does not at all like foreclose the rest of, doesn't foreclose like things that don't feel wonderful. Yeah. Nor does wonder only apply to things that we call wonderful. You know, like wonder is a kind of state of unknowing, and you know, so it's not like it requires what we call delight, actually. But for me, I feel like, and again with your book, it's something about the practice of holding both at the same time that, like, to me, I just think of like a grown-up state of being is to know that we are going to be in the presence of great sorrow if we're paying any attention at all. And the more difficult practice sometimes, and the practice that we need community sometimes in order to do, is to be like, and in the midst of that profound sorrow, there is a hummingbird on the zinnia, and do not miss it. Do not miss it. And even that there's a hummingbird on the zinnia, and there are zinnias, and there are, you know, creatures that orient by the stars, you know, all kinds. And we are sort of like, in some way, the grief and the delight, they do not, they're not mutually constitutive. Like they, you know, the grief is just sort of like a baseline, and the delight sort of, the delight emerges despite it with practice and community in a certain kind of way. That's sort of what I think. And your book feels like that, because it's all so infrequently, or it's often also wonder with Dustin, wonder with the kids, wonder because of your folks, you know. Anyway, so what do you think?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, I co-sign everything that you say, because I think there's actually a group of people who think that I just walk around and just be like, look at this, and not a care in the world. I know social media makes it seem like I have no cares in the world sometimes, and that's not true. I think my close friends know that. I mean, I don't think the last times I've chatted with you, like on Zoom, I've been like crying. You know what I mean? Like, so not just crying, but I think it's there. A grief is there. Sadness and rage is always there.
Yeah.
And then the wonder wins. I make sure the wonder wins at the end of the day. And definitely there are harder days than others, but that's where the practice is. I try with all my might to make the wonder win by the end of the day. And I'm human. I don't always succeed. And I think that's also important for people to hear that as well. There's so much sadness in this book. And there's so much sadness in all of my poems. That's why I always get a little bit tickled when someone say, oh, Aimee's a poet of joy and happiness. But if you're really reading, I mean, there's a lot of sadness and wants and aloneness, you know, in some ways as well. So I think you're right that they go hand in hand in some ways. I don't necessarily even want a world where there's no grief, because I also think that's weird to not feel that, you know. I want to be able to feel grief for my fellow human. I want to feel sympathy when a friend's parent passes away, or, you know, someone's hamster dies. You know, I want to feel something. And I think everything around us is telling us to not feel. Do this quick thing and just desensitize ourselves and stare at a screen open mouth. And to have that practice of wonder, delight, is a way to kind of push back against that. But it's hard. It's hard. There's no, but I do not. And again, this is me saying, I do not have the answers. I you know, I think it's important. I have better days than others, for sure. And there was definite times during the writing of this book. I mean, and yours was happening when the new regime started. You know, I mean, I think there's a couple delights. And the day after the inauguration and stuff like that. So there's definite days, but you push through. You found that delight. You pushed through. So it's a continuing process that's going to shift. And I'm excited for that shift and glad for that shift too, because it means I'm feeling something and I'm not staying static. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Here's
another question, and I'm going to adapt it a little bit, but was there a kind of a linear sort of either some kind of progression from the book and the setup of the book that was from X, A to Z, or that was chronological, or was there a shape to the book that you could talk about, or that would feel interesting to talk about? And you might also this will be interesting for folks maybe to hear, like when you're talking about that, maybe the difference between making this book and arranging this book and making a book of poems, or putting a book of poems together. Yeah,
that's a good one. So can I just share too, this is the first time, I just got this today. You guys are the first people to see my hardback. It just came in the mail. Actually, my local independent store drove it over so that they could see a copy. And so that I could see a copy of this. And I'm still processing this. This was just like an hour ago that I got this. And what I can say, so someone in the questions asked, like, can you actually talk about your book? Like, what is it? And I don't. So it's a collection of lyric essays. They're very short, and they're all just so beautifully illustrated by this incredible illustrator named Fumi Nakamura. And she's the only one. It was very important to me to get an Asian American illustrator. I mean, and there's like, this one's black and white, but there's color. I mean, it's just so So they're all short. I think the longest is like maybe 5 pages. And I'd say there's probably 70% about the natural world, 30% memoir, maybe a little bit. And I did not want to make this chronological. It just creeped me out to be like, well, when I was 4 years old, this is how the book opened at 4. And then it was like the last one I wrote, I mean, was this past December, so so I didn't want it to do that, but my favorite thing for me is when I'm reading through a book, and this is poetry or essays, is when I see callbacks to earlier moments in the book, earlier moments in the in the book or the person's life if it's creative nonfiction. So when I talk about I don't know, a firefly early on, I want people to say like, oh, this mention of this firefly resonates a little bit more, or it hits different. Is that what the kids say? It hits different when you get to the, and be like, Amy, you cannot use that word. It's different, but it does. I want it to hit different when you get to like the 7th time I mentioned fireflies or something like that. You know what I mean? And that wouldn't have happened had I did all my firefly essays right at the beginning and then ended somewhere else. So I wanted there to be callbacks and kind of arguments, and also to show growth, that the girl I was writing about at 12 is very different than the 45-year-old who's looking out her window at 3 a.m. because she can't sleep because of this freaking administration, that kind of thing. So so for me, I did not want to do it chronological. And one of my dear colleagues, Casey Lehman, he was like, no, don't do anything but chronological for this. So that just solidified it. Putting this together, I wanted to see like moments where I wasn't thinking of an arc in the way that I think of an arc in a poetry book, but I wanted there to be essays that I guess clash, and some of them Velcro, some of them Velcro against each other, and then some are like magnets that repel each other. I just didn't want the reader to ever feel in a lull. Every page, every animal, every plant, I wanted to be like, what's next? Also, I couldn't concentrate in some ways. I know many of us right now, it's working. I couldn't concentrate in terms of keeping a straight, none of these are going to be narrative the whole way through, but I wanted, when you're done with an animal, you're done. And then maybe you might get some callbacks in the next essay, but you're starting completely new. You don't even know how old I am or what until until context clues happen. So I wanted it to be surprise and delight on every animal and plant chapter.
So here's a question. As an environmentalist and nature lover, there's so much about the natural world that I don't know. How do you suggest someone go about learning more? It can be overwhelming. That's a lovely question. Yeah.
How can you start? I mean, I think one thing that I ask my students to do is to think back to the kid they were when they were maybe 7 years old, 6 or 7. What did you love about outside? And I know everybody's version of outside is going to be different. Maybe it could be just, the way, like you said, like a certain sunset, the twilight hits in the city or across a park, or the way twilight hits at the grandma's farm in western Kansas, that kind of thing. To go back with what you love, but who inhabits those areas, or what inhabits those areas? So is it a painted bunting that you had only seen once and then just never again? What happened to that? Are painting buntings still around? And then just go full on. Try to become that expert on everything you can about painted buntings. How do they get that rainbow array of feathers? Like, what is making them rainbow and not other birds? If you don't know what a painted bunting is, you've got to Google that. I mean, it's just like a flying rainbow. It's a burst of flying rainbow when they come out. Like, why are not all birds like that? Or why do they live only in certain areas? So I'd start with love. Think about what you loved as a kid.
Yeah.
Interests you now. Why don't you know the names of 4 clouds? And just make that your 2020 pandemic project. Learn 4 cloud names. 4, that's it. And then from there, maybe you'll learn it about, derechos and tornadoes, or who knows what. But to start small and let that curiosity bloom bigger. But to start small, for sure.
That makes me like remember that I want to ask you the things that you didn't include. Like what I've asked you this before, but like what right today is breaking your heart that you couldn't fit into the book? Yeah.
Oh gosh, I have a whole list. I knew
it.
Where do I even begin? There's something called the sea dragon. Not the green leafy sea dragon, but it's blue and white. It's just maybe an inch big, but it looks like a royal blue asterisk, and they sting, so you're not really supposed to hold them. That if you've seen them move in the ocean, there's far too many ocean creatures that I wanted to include, and I didn't want this to be oceanic, but in essays. So the sea dragon, I would say it's called the blue sea dragon.
That was easy. I knew that'd be easy. I know you could go on.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, which one do I pick to share here? So yeah. I could have done double the length of this, but I know I want to finish it at some point.
Hey, what's blowing your mind with wonder right now? Maybe in your garden or in your garden or.
What's blowing my mind? Oh, it's chrysalis time here in Mississippi. So we're just getting, I have so much milkweed in front and backyards, and we're on monarch butterfly alert. So my boys have high hopes. They are hoping, last year we had about like 9 chrysalises. They're hoping for double that. And so every morning, they're still in their pajamas. They're searching, looking for chrysalises along and so I write about monarchs in the book, but butterflies were probably one of my first early wonders. How do you not just take your breath away with what happens to a butterfly in a chrysalis? I mean, they liquefy before they become this bird. Did you know that, Ross? You know that. Yes.
Nope. No, I don't think I did. Maybe I heard that, but I lost it. It feels like a little bit up in here, but.
There you go. Well, they liquefy before they emerge.
And they come back together or what?
Yeah, I mean, again, like that. So that's.
You haven't been in there. Yeah.
That's something that if those you're saying where to start, like find it. I want to know a little bit more, like, and I don't know exactly the chemical. How does this caterpillar liquefy and then turn into this orange? I know the gist of it, but not enough to not be laughed at by scientists.
Man. Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, we have these. Well, we have cabbage moths, which for most people are not their favorite. But cabbage moths, last year I sort of found this, but this year I'm noticing it again. When they arrive and they start to lay the eggs that nibble on the brassicas, collards, and kale and stuff, I just noticed, because I was kind of watching and trying to get a sense of what was going on, I noticed that a wasp shows up after those cabbage moths do. And I don't know if it's for sure that it's a wasp, that's a predatory wasp that's nibbling those, but I wonder, I mean, because they just kind of float around the collards and the kale, and they seem like they're looking for the cabbage moths. And I'm not, I'm not sure, but it seems like the kind of a cycle that maybe could happen.
And they're only around when the cabbage moths appear?
They show up after that, and that's when they show up in the, I don't know if they're someplace else, but they show up kind of wandering around the collards.
See, people who don't know, this is half of our talk. We talk about our garden. We do like garden reports.
I know. Yeah. It's also like, like I said, we have really nice, the zinnias are doing good. And they're,
beautiful.
a good one, right?
Yeah.
But the hummingbirds are just, we don't have a lot. Like you have hummingbirds, like tons.
Well, that's because my husband puts all the sugar out for them. I mean, we started out with 1, and now we have like 4 or 5. So it's like, it's like Top Gun out here, with Iceman and Maverick, and some of them are mean. Some of them are very mean. The boys call the meanest one Tad. They just, sorry if there's any Tads out there, but they just name, and they came up with that on their own. So Tad is our mean hummingbird. So, I have one last little poll, and then I think.
Oh yeah.
can we do one more poll, Alex? The very last one. This is a funny one. You haven't seen this, Ross. Okay. So here's the last one, folks. Would you rather learn fashion skincare tips from Ross, March Madness tips, commentary from me, if we even have a March Madness, or nobody wins with either scenario? I'll tell you that I've won several brackets just from my techniques of basing the winners on how cute their mascots are. So just I have some pretty good things. All right, let's see. Fashion skincare tips. Very good. I'll try not to be hurt by that, but I'll be the one rolling in the money, from March Madness if we have it. Look at that. You could be an influencer.
That's great. I got another job. Don't
you all want Ross to be a Instagram influencer? This is like morning overalls, night overalls. Juby's asking. Juby, you know Juby, Ross. He's asking, what moisturizer do you use?
Coconut oil.
You talk about moisturizer in your delights. Very uncomfortable essay, by the way. It's a little too uncomfortable for me. So what is that moisturizer?
Coconut oil, that's what it is. I read that. I know I've told you this, Aimee, probably 1,000 times. You were there, maybe. I don't know. No, were you there? Yeah. I read it to a bunch of kind of high school. I mean, there were adults there too. Thank God.
No, it was at Dodge. Remember, it was, and I was in the audience. I was cringing with the teenagers. Those of you who weren't there, the most recent Dodge festival, all the teenagers were like, "Yeah." If you don't know Ross's essay, it's a beautiful essay, actually. What is it called? Coconut Baby?
Cocoa Baby. Yeah.
If you don't know Ross's essay, get it out from Book of Delights. It's called Cocoa Baby. To see 500 high school kids imagine Ross moisturizing himself was the funniest thing. Oh my gosh, they were cringing like their legs were up in the seat.
Like, no!
It was so funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. What's your moisturizer, Amy?
I have a whole Korean skincare routine.
Oh, you do?
So I can't give one answer, but there's a serum. It's all organic, but it's the one
just coconut oil.
No, I don't use coconut oil, but I'm not opposed to it. It's just I have about 4 or 5 products. It takes a lot. Not everybody has as much natural beauty as you, Ross.
It's the overalls.
That'll be our next Zoom. We'll just talk about our beauty
skincare
routine.
And overalls, yeah. Because you got overalls too. I know you do.
I know. I just wasn't wearing them today. I have my beige ones. I have gray ones. I have black ones. I rip on you, but I have a bunch of overalls.
I know, and you have the ones that I actually want. They're different colors. Anyway, Aimee, I think we're kind of toward the end here.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share, or I don't know, anything?
No, I think that is it. I wanted to remind oils and unguents. Yes, I'm just looking at the so funny. I just want to remind people that if they purchase my book today, if they purchase World of Wonders, you're gonna be in the running for what is it, Alex? If Alex wants to chip, there's the chance to win Ross's book, and then also broadsides as well. Yes, yes, Sarah, thank you. I took a bunch of these, so I want to make sure. So yes, and there is a relationship between overalls and wonder. Yeah. Let me see. Alex, did you have last minute things as well?
Yeah. Hey, sorry. Yes, it's the broadside. Here it is. That's the broadside. Yeah. No, I just wanted to wrap us up. I was laughing for the past minute over that last poll. I knew our audience was going to pick Ross's skincare.
I'm so hurt. I'm going to be raking in the money for March Madness. Is all I can say. So.
I just wanted to thank Aimee and Ross. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much for joining us with the Midtown Scholar Bookstore for your book launch. congratulations on the book. It's so exciting.
Yeah. Beautiful, 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 Aimee.
Hold it up one more time.
Yeah.
The very first time. This is the very first time. Yep.
I want to thank.
I gotta show this.
Yeah, the foil. Oh, shiny.
Look at that.
Oh, wow.
That is for the poet who visited when I was in grad school, who said I needed to change my name if I was going to be published. So I'm going to be like, yeah, change my name. I'm going to put it in
I want to thank our audience, everyone tuning in tonight. It was really, we had a great crowd, great questions from the audience tonight. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Again, if you want to purchase the book, there should be a link in the chat room, or you can just head to our website, midtownscholar.com. We have both World of Wonders and Beholding by Ross Gay available for purchase. Again, we're going to pick one lucky winner. I will send that person an email, Aimee, the person that gets Beholding, later tonight. And then we also are going to pick 10 lucky winners for the broadsides. Thanks again. I want to give Ross and Aimee, I want to give you guys the last word to our audience. So Ross, if you want to go, and then Aimee.
Yeah, I just want to say Aimee Nezhukumatathil's World of Wonders is like, one of the most beautiful, dear, like imaginative, loving. It's a book that is about loving, and like, like that's the truth. So I just want to endorse it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to share. It's, like, it's the kind of book, I mean, many things, but like to hang around and like, I'm thinking of like this moment to hang around and kind of read essays to each other. Is kind of a lucky thing to do. And this book is just like, forget it.
Oh, Ross, thank you so much. You're going to make me cry. I told you, don't make me cry during this thing. But, thank you all so much. I know like over 200 here, and then like more on Facebook have been watching. So much for just cutting out a little bit of your day for Ross and I here. I think one of the biggest wonders of my life is just the friendships that I've been able to cultivate. Been writing for 20 some years, and that's one thing I try to impart on my students is that you are also looking for good readers of your work. And that might happen in this workshop. It might happen out of workshop. And Ross and I think, are living testaments of that. I didn't even know Ross existed when I was in grad school. And turns out he's one of the best readers of my work, who also has no qualms about telling me when I've made a misstep or anything like that. And this book wouldn't, and I just feel so lucky to have had your eyes on this book and to say, yeah, keep going, or I don't know, maybe, that kind of thing. And anyway, so that's something too that I don't think enough people talk about when they're in an MFA program or out. So to just try to learn something, try to make that a pandemic project, learning 4 types of clouds, and cultivate your friendships, because those are also big wonders as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thanks,
Thank
Aimee.
you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone, have a good night.
Alrighty, bye.
Yeah.